more number problems. Our question says, write down 5 numbers that match each of the following descriptions. And our first description says consecutive numbers. So consecutive means in a row. So consecutive numbers are numbers that are in a row. So those would be numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So we're looking at numbers that are in a row. Consecutive even numbers. Even numbers are numbers that divide by 2. So 1 would not be an even number, but 2 is. And then 3 is not an even number, but 4 is. And 5, not an even number, but 6. 7, no, but 8. And then not 9, but 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 would be consecutive even numbers. Consecutive odd numbers, those are numbers that do not divide by 2. So those would be numbers like 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So consecutive numbers are numbers that are just one after the other. Consecutive even numbers skip, so they're numbers that divide by 2. And then consecutive odd numbers are numbers that do not divide by 2. So we're going to try to set up some word problems, but not actually solve. It says, for each of the following comparison sentences, write let statements for each unknown. So our first one says 2 numbers are consecutive integers. So we set up here consecutive numbers are things like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I think about those numbers, to get from 1 to 2, I would add 1. To get from 2 to 3, I would add 1. To get from 3 to 4, I would add 1. To get from 4 to 5, I would add 1. So when you have consecutive numbers, the next number is always 1 bigger than the one that came before. So if I have 2 consecutive integers, I'm going to let something be the first integer. You could also write number if you want. And then I'm going to let something be the second integer. So if they're consecutive, I always said in the previous video that we would let x be whatever we had mentioned last. Here it's just 2 numbers. So I'm going to let the first number be x, and then the second one should be 1 bigger because consecutive numbers are just 1 number apart. So this second one should be x plus 1 because it should be 1 digit bigger, right? So if I had the number 10, then 10 plus 1 would make 11. That would be the next number. You could also do x minus 1 if you wanted and go 1 number smaller, as long as they are 1 digit apart. Our second one here says 2 numbers are consecutive even integers. If I take a look again at my even numbers, to get from 2 to 4, you'll notice we didn't go up by 1, we went up by 2. From 4 to 6, we went up by 2 again. From 6 to 8, we went up by 2. And from 8 to 10, we also went up by 2. So even numbers aren't 1 digit apart, they are 2 numbers apart. So if you have the first number, to get the next number, all you have to do is just add on 2. So I'm going to, for this one, let something be the first number. Let something be the second number. And same thing as last time, I'm going to let the first number be x to start, and then the next number should be 2 bigger, so it should be x plus 2. So let x be the first number, let x plus 2 be the second number. So our third question says the sum of 2 consecutive odd integers is 556. What are the 2 integers? So this one is actually a full word problem and not just a comparison sentence. When I read through it, it says the sum of 2 consecutive odd integers is 556. So usually in a word problem, there's a comparison sentence, and then there's some type of total or something that you can build your equation out of. When I read through this question, I do notice that it's telling me the sum is 556. Sum is what you get when you add. So the sum is 556. That's the total. And then the comparison is actually in the same sentence. That is that they are consecutive odd integers. That is the comparison. So we're going to have to build an equation and then solve it around the fact that we have consecutive odd integers that add to 556. So I'm going to start just by identifying my unknowns. What am I missing in this question? There are two integers. So I'm going to let something be the first integer. I'm going to let something be the second integer. So they are consecutive odd integers. So that means I'm just going to let the first one be x, and then odd integers are things like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So to get from 1 to 3, I would add 2. From 3 to 5, I would add 2. From 5 to 7, I would add 2. And from 7 to 9, I would add 2. So just like even numbers, because they're skipping over, the odd numbers here are also going up by 2 every time. So if you have an odd number and you want to know the next consecutive odd number, you would just add on 2. So it's going to be x plus 2. Now some people get a little confused because 2 is an even number and it seems weird to them, right, that they're adding on an even number to get an odd number, but all of those odd numbers are 2 numbers apart, so it makes sense that it should just be x plus 2. So I'm going to start with a word equation. I always do. It is optional, but it's what I like to do. So it says that they have a sum of 556. That means if I take my first number and add my second number, I'm going to get 556. So my first number we said was x. My second number is x plus 2. And then that should equal 556. So I notice I have two different x's, so I'm going to collect my like terms. X plus x is 2x plus 2 equals 556. And then I want to solve. So I would start by subtracting 2 from both sides. So I get 2x equals 556. Take away 2 should be 554. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. And I'm going to use my calculator to help me with that. So 554 divided by 2 is 277. So I'm not done the question yet. I did finish solving for x, and sometimes when I finish solving for x, I think that I'm done, but we're not done. It's a word problem, and it is our job to find the two integers. So I'm going to come back to those let statements. We said the first number was x. We said the second number was x plus 2. I now know that x is 277, so that means that the first number is x, so 277. The second number is 277 plus 2, or 279. So before I write my sentence, I am just going to do a quick check. These are supposed to be two consecutive odd integers. Are these odd numbers? Yes, they are. Right? They don't end in an even number, right? They don't divide by 2. So I'm good. So I'm going to say, therefore, the numbers are, or the integers are, 277, and 279. So when I'm doing a word problem, I always need to have let statements. I need an equation. I need to solve that equation, right? We need to go back and find our answers and then write a sentence. So you should be doing let statements, equation, solution, answers, and then sentence. And that's how you solve a number problem with consecutive numbers.